This is another episode of Standup Comedy, your host and MC, celebrating 40-plus years on the fringe of show business. Stories, interviews, and comedy sets from the famous and not so famous. Here's your host and MC, Scott Edwards.
Hey, welcome to this week's show. We have some fun in store for you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Pitbull of comedy and a good old friend in the business. Let's hear it for Bobby Slayton.
Okay. First of all, you know what? When you used to MC the shows 20, 30, 40, what was it, 50 years ago at Last Unlimited, back then, even though you were an amateur, you gave me better introductions. You think by now, after 30 years of practicing, I'm not saying you have to be Johnny Carson or even Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon, but you would think, Edwards, you'd be able to go, we've been doing the show for a while, and here's another comic who's an old friend of mine. And then, you give some credits. He's been in all these movies like Bandits and Dreamgirls. He's one of the top comics out of San Francisco. The whole guy, you should have let me do my own introduction because that's one of the things. By the way, you don't have to talk for the next hour. By the way, that's one of the things. It's funny because when you told me you're doing a podcast about Last Unlimited, and I really thought about it when you called me yesterday. About reminiscing and nice stories about the old days, and there's nothing I could think of nice to say about you or that club or Sacramento. But I'm going to make shit up now. I'm going to make stuff up. And then you said to me, well, we'll tape for like an hour, and then I'll cut out all the funny stuff when you make fun of me. You didn't say that. But now that I know you're going to cut out everything to make you look good and me look stupid, it doesn't matter what I say, really.
Well, it's nice you're going into this with the right attitude.
Oh, well, yeah, like everything else in life, And by the way, and you said to me, look, I'm doing a podcast, you and 80 million other people. And then I think you said to me, we have a couple of thousand listeners. Just because you have a couple of thousand people who have taken interest doesn't mean any of them are listening. But I do want to say hello to your 2,000 imaginary listeners. And since you have only 2,000 imaginary listeners, why don't we just say to your million imaginary listeners?
Well,
I'd like to say hello and thank you for having me on the show.
That boosts my ego a little bit. Thank you.
Yeah. And then you said to me, and don't mention President Reagan or President Nixon or anything because people are going to think this thing is old. Don't mention the COVID thing. Don't mention Man on the Moon. Don't mention anything that's happened in the past so you can play this crap for many years to come and nobody will know when the hell it took place.
Well, that's not really the point. I just want to celebrate comedy. It was something that was a big part of my life. I know it's been a big part of yours, and it's just nice to talk to people in the business.
It's over for both of us. Can we forget it and move on? Holy shit, really? We have to dwell on this comedy crap? And let me tell you something else, Scotty boy. It's funny because I used to love to do stand-up comedy. When I told you the other day I was sick of it, it's because I hate people so much now. It used to be nice with what's going on in the world, and it doesn't matter what's going on now. We're not going to mention, or the zombie apocalypse when they got the cure for COVID, and the zombies came back, and the nuclear war. We're not going to mention North Korea blowing up, half the country. We're not going to mention anything in the past. We're going to continue on like things are just normal. But
let's go to the beginning. How did you, just a short version, how did you end up a comic?
I'm like, really? That's the best you could come up with?
Okay.
Really?
How did you end up working for me?
Wait, let's back up before I forget. More important than hold that thought and that question, which I'll be happy to answer. Okay. So when you called me yesterday and you told me you're doing this podcast, now, that was the first time I've heard from you in how many years? How many years,
at least
you think?
30.
You think 30 years?
Yes.
Well, when did Last Unlimited close in Sacramento?
It's still open.
Well, but you sold it. And I mean, when did you get out of it?
I sold it and semi-retired in 2001.
Okay. So
After 20 years.
And I didn't talk to you while it was still open because I went over to play the punchline, which I want to tell you about. You're still mad at me for that, aren't you?
No. You were a regular, very important headliner to the club in the 80s. And then towards the end of the 80s, you got that contract offer from the punchline, and we lost it. I
had to take it. Right.
No, we totally understood. We weren't upset about it. Business is business. And then you went on to fame.
You got to understand. It's like the mafia. It's just business. Fredo, it's business. But, you got to remember something, though. Back then, there were a lot of comics, and you probably know this, that just assholes who, I was one of these guys who was loyal to a club Like when Denver, the Comedy Works, which is still there. I remember when the improv went in, and I'd been working improvs all over the country, but I'd worked for Wendy for so long, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to go work for these other people. But there were comics that would jump ship for like $100 a week, $200 a week. And I said, well, how can you do that when somebody's, taking care of you, paying your bills, put you up in a nice hotel or condo? So I never wanted to do that. But when Bill Graham, like you said, and there was no pressure, but when he came in, and it wasn't Bill personally, but I've been working the Punchline in San Francisco, and I've been doing concerts for them, I've been working, Walnut Creek in the Bay Area, so I had to do it. I'm glad you understood.
Oh,
but
yeah.
my point was, what?
No, I just said, yeah, of course.
But here's the thing. When you called me and you said you started this podcast, you've done about 25 of them. And I said, so you don't call me. Okay, you had 25 podcasts, and I'm sure there was another 25 comics that you tried to get a hold of that you couldn't find, didn't answer your calls, another 25, Scott, that were fucking dead. So you probably went through 75 guys by the time you got to me.
No, that's not what happened. It's funny.
What happened? So who did the first 25 podcasts? I want to know what comics you got a hold of. They were more important to me because I helped make that club. I love that club. I love Laughs Unlimited. Not you so much, but Laughs Unlimited.
Well, you were an important part of the growth in the early '80s, and I don't remember because I'm you and I are the same age, but you might have a better memory.
Right.
That what year you started, but I think it was about 81, 82.
Well, wait, no, okay, because I remember a lot of stuff like you. I don't remember. What year did you open the club in Old Sac?
We're just about to hit the anniversary, August of 1980.
Okay. I started doing stand-up comedy. Me and Dana Carvey started the same night at the Holy City Zoo. And I don't know what happened to Dana Carvey. He fell off the face of the earth. But I kept playing all the funny bones and improv, and Dana just disappeared. He did the church lady. Nobody heard from him again. But I'm pretty sure Dana and I went on the first night, the same night for our first time. And then, that was in 1976, 77.
Wow.
I actually checked with Dana on that, and then I didn't do it for years. So I really started in 77 because most comics always say you don't count your first year because you're just dabbling and doing a few open mics. So I got up on stage when I was 21. So that was 1976. So I officially started in 77. So I was there when you opened up the original club in Old Sac, which was down in the basement. Bill Hicks opened up for me, I think, twice there.
Yeah, it was at the we were in the basement of the Delta Queen restaurant in a little room that sat about 100 people, and we had a black curtain up and a small riser. It was
I remember it well.
I was just starting.
Now then, when you moved to the nicer room, wasn't that still in the Delta Queen, but just upstairs?
No, it was actually in the alley across the street, and that was the club that I really felt the most love for because I got to design the room. We were in a basement. It had that comedy feel, low ceiling, the fake brick wall. I
remember, and you were collecting animation cells. You put some of them on the walls. That was that club, right?
Yes.
Right. And then when you moved out to the burbs, that was the big club. You finally got all the kinks worked out, and because when you open a club, and I've never opened a club, but you go, okay, well, this is what we got to do next time, and this is what we got to fix this time, and it costs more and more money, but you don't want to make the same mistakes twice.
Yeah, you learn and grow.
Right. So you learned and you grew. I'll tell you one thing I do remember, which I hated. You were the house MC, and you were really good at it, but then you got kind of cocky. You figured, okay, you kind of felt you were a comic. So I go, fuck it, Scott's doing another extra 5 now? Really? Just when you think you're coming on stage, hey, where are you from? Hey, I just had a baby, and you go, I have another 10 minutes. Holy shit, I might as well just go take a leak and go out and smoke a cigarette. Scott's bringing up another say, anybody ever buy a new car? Oh, fuck, there's another 15 minutes I got to go.
Yeah,
and then I come on, then I go on stage and you go, look, we have a second show. You only have 12 minutes. I'm supposed to do an hour, but it was a Scotty Edwards show. Man, I'm exaggerating, but
I never thought of myself as a comic, but I did enjoy stage time.
By the way, nobody else did either.
Well,
just to make that quite.
Well, it was
quite clear.
It was a fun time, though. I mean, I will always appreciate the relationships I built and the whole comedy scene was so new and you had already been in it 3 years, but I was at 24 just getting into it and by the seat of my pants and making lots of mistakes. But you had Bill Hicks open for you a couple times?
Well, Bill Hicks opened for me a few times when he was like a teenager. You know, him and Dave Chappelle when they were teenagers. That's why, I mean, Chappelle, you know, I remember here at 17, 18, that guy was great. And no comic's good at 17, 18. No comic. Very few comics even are comics at 17 or 18. But Hicks, he was probably by then in his early 20s. I mean, I don't remember. But I do know we played for you the week that John Belushi died because we were sharing the comedy condo.
Yeah.
So whenever John passed away, me and Hicks went back to the condo. I think we were both dabbling in drugs at the time. I mean, more shooting heroin. I think probably a little blow, and I think he was getting into hallucinogenics. They're both smoking pot and drinking, that's for sure. But we went back to the condo, and, you know, we sort of Belushi had died, and we didn't know Belushi. But, you know, I mean, it kind of shook both of us up. And
it was still a big hit to comedy and to all of us that were in the industry and knew there was talent. But to me, it was just as big a loss when we lost Hicks. I mean, there's been a number of people that have been lost over the last, I mean, like you said, it's been 30 years since you and I have actually been in the same room together. And there's been so many changes, but that's one of the things that I think I wanted to ask you about is that you have a different style of comedy, a little harsher, a little harder hitting. I always found it very entertaining. My crowds always enjoyed it. But
most of them, not all of them, but most of them.
But I think that we presented you in the right light in our club was the right kind of atmosphere. I mean, I can't imagine you going into one of those discos turned comedy clubs or some restaurant that threw a riser up in the corner and said, hey, here's your headliner. You know, Laughs was at least a comedy club there for comedy.
Look, I've been doing this as long or longer than anybody, you know, around. I mean, you know, and there have been a lot of those risers in the corner, disco, corporate parties. And many of them have gone great, and some of them have gone horribly awry. And some of them, there have been so many of them. And, you know, my style of comedy, you know, the thing is now, what's funny is that now I'm not really working much. And after all the Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter, people became so uptight. People became very uptight. And I mean, and it's not all undeservedly so, but people have got, you know, it's too much out. People have gotten too upset.
Too sensitive
about stuff when it comes to comedy. I'm not saying they're too upset about, well, you know, with sexual harassment and the cops and everything. I'm just saying, but the comics are comics, and we're here to make fun of people. And, you know, when you can't say this, you can't do that, and Trader Joe's has to change their labels, and Aunt Jemima's gone, and, you know, Mr. Clean is too gay. And then, you know, oh, shut up already, okay? And Jimmy Kimmel did blackface 30 years ago, and he needs to apologize with a written letter to, all right, okay, I get it. But, you know, it's comedy, and I've always been one, you know, when I started doing it, when I became a comic, when you asked me earlier when I became a comic, when I started doing it at 21, 22, I never really knew about Lenny Bruce. And people would say, oh, you're like a young Lenny Bruce. And when I started watching Lenny Bruce, even though I was nothing like Lenny Bruce, you know, I started reading his books and watching and listening to his stuff. I go, wow, I got to drop that joke. Lenny Bruce did that joke. And I'm going, hey, at least I'm following in these footsteps. And people like George Carlin and all these comics, you know, were getting crap. You know, the Smothers Brothers, who I grew up with, who became good friends of mine, were getting crap. You know, they were censored and blackballed during the Nixon administration. So I go, you know what? This is good. And when I started doing stand-up in San Francisco, the point I was making was that there was like a black comedy night in Oakland, and they can make fun of whitey. And there was a gay comedy night in some gay club, and they make fun of straight people. And I'm going, don't tell me that I can't make fun of you. You know, oh, and women are minorities, and blacks are minorities, and gays. But now people are so sensitive. And again, I understand that, But, I started attacking back. You're going to make fun of me? I'm going to make fun of you. You know?
And
so
we should explain, I don't mean to interrupt, but we should explain to the listeners that maybe haven't seen your set. We're going to fix that later in the show. But we have had people say that you were similar to a young Don Rickles or
right.
Sam Kinison. I think Lenny Bruce is a good connection. And it is interesting because that style of insult humor, and what was great about you, Bobby, and I think that's why it worked for Don Rickles as well, is that you're non-partisan. I mean, it's everybody, And
I hate everybody. But the difference is, and I hate to interrupt you, but what I have to say is more important. Okay, I love Rickles, and I knew Rickles over the years, and he was a real sweetheart of a guy. I gave him a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Montreal Comedy Festival 10, 15 years ago.
Oh, cool.
And his manager said to me, do not use any four-letter words when you are, Don doesn't like that. And so he was very clean, and he made fun of everybody. And my stuff was more hard-hitting. But he was kind of a role model for me.
But you both had a way of going after every section of life evenly,
right.
And I think that's what made it okay with at least my audiences, is it wasn't like some comics where you focus in on one type of person or one subject. It's everything. And when you come across like you and Don Rickles hitting everything, you really shouldn't get offended. But it's interesting that you mentioned how sensitive people are today, because I don't know if people like you and Don Rickles and others would have the success in this day and age than we had in the 80s and 90s. I mean, it's really changed. I mean, I would pick on people as an MC. I mean, it was just part of the pattern, right? It was okay.
Well, here's the other thing too about Rickles. If Don was around now, I wish he was around. His comedy was so not abrasive, really. But if you go, and the black guy goes, hey, you know that? Oh, the Japanese guy, with the big teeth. If he did that now, even though he's Don Rickles, I think you get these younger millennial douchebags, these vegan ponytailed scumbags
yeah, don't
who
hold
just
back.
get upset, So, the bottom line is that I am now 65 years old, and I am I'm tired of stand-up comedy,
Well, you mentioned the road. The road's hard.
Well, you know what? Look, the road is hard, but when you get guys like Jerry Seinfeld, or you get guys like the great Bill Burr, or you get Dave Chappelle, whatever, you get guys that are flying first class or flying private planes, getting $100,000 to $1 million a night, and staying in a suite at the Ritz-Carlton and then going the next day, and everybody's coming to see them. When you're playing a comedy club, like Glass Unlimited, which back in the day was a great club, but, you're playing a comedy club and you're staying in a Hampton Inn. Look, there are so many people that have been out of work for years. We started with the COVID thing and unemployment, and I felt so horrible for all my friends that went out of business for the restaurants. I'm not complaining, but I'm saying that life on the road, making, whatever, and with idiots and having to get up in the morning and do morning radio, and, it gets grueling.
Well, I
love morning radio. I was one of the guys. Look, you know what? I was one of the comics who always, like when you said to me, let's do the podcast, what time you want to do it? What night? I go, no. Not what night. No. But 4 or 5 o'clock, I've opened up a bottle of wine. I'm cooking dinner for my girlfriend. And I'm in bed watching TV by 8 or 9, sleep by 10, and walking the dog at 7 a.m. I love that. When my daughter was born, I was on the road so much that when I was home, I make sure to make her lunch and take her to school every morning at 7 a.m., and I would walk the dog, and I would, you have to catch a plane and you have to do morning radio. So I'm used to getting up 6, 7 in the morning. I'm an old Jew now, but I was always an old Jew. I was always on the time schedule, and I love it.
Well,
Last night I stayed up till 11 o'clock, binge watching. And to me, binge watching is making it through one episode of something.
Well,
that's me. People, yeah, but my girlfriend goes, hey, let's binge watch your show. I go, watch like 4 or 5. I go, 4 or 5? Are you crazy? If I make it through one, You know?
Well, we should take this moment to bring up two things. First off, you have a very successful daughter. Natasha is a very successful actress out there. And so whatever you did worked, and she's a great gal. And then the other is you mentioned doing the radio promo shows. And one of the reasons I reached out to you is that your name came up as one of the favorite guests for Paul and Phil on Y92. I had them in here for an interview, and we were talking about the various comics that would come on the show. And right. Paul Robbins and Phil Cowan go, oh, our favorite by far, Bobby Slayton. That guy. I
love those guys. You know, those are the guys like Brother Weeze in Rochester, you know, like Paul and Young Ron in Florida. Like, there are guys that said Alex Bennett in San Francisco. And I'm leaving out dozens of guys. So many great shows that I love doing. And you know, and morning radio to me, always a treat because, you know, and I would always plan out my stuff. A lot of comedians would go on,
yeah, just
you know, they
improv.
wouldn't. You know, and they weren't funny. You know, I would go on, and the night before I did my show, I went out for dinner, and I wrote out all these jokes. And, and by the way, and I just got to Lamont and Tonelli in San Francisco, one of my favorites of the last 5 years. But I can't sit here and make your name radio show. But those guys in Sacramento were great, and I would love to go on in the morning. And a lot of radio shows were afraid to have me on because my show, you know, the F-bomb and whatever I would say on stage, but I never, maybe once or twice in 30 years, would let a word slip. You know, it's after the 7-second delay.
Well, you're a professional. You're a professional, Bobby. You knew the difference between
But I would plan
TV
out
and
the
radio.
stuff, and that's why those guys like me. Because, you know, look, it doesn't do any good. Because I'd always ask the morning shows. I go, so what comics have you had on recently that sucked? And they tell me these comics. It doesn't do you any good as a club owner or the radio station to wake up at 6 in the morning after working the night before, go on the radio and just answer questions with one word answer. So I can become a comic. Okay, well, it's great to have you on the show. You like being in Sacramento? Yeah, okay, it's great. Okay, that's not putting any asses in the seats that night. What are you waking up in the morning for and doing radio if you're not going to be funny?
But you
now,
get it.
On the other hand,
I was just giving you a compliment that you got that it was marketing and business, and it's all part of making the show and the club successful.
Well, of course.
It's a symbiotic relationship. How well the comic does also details how good the club does, and that's why you were one of our great headliners, is that you always drew people, and you drew people because you got up and did morning radio and kicked ass on stage.
Well, you know, the other thing I think also is back then, you booked so many crappy comics that people looking forward to seeing me. You know, I wasn't really that good. I was just good. There were a lot of mediocre comics. I was just a good comic, you know. But you know what it is also is that, you know, you do the radio and it's really helpful. But then on the other hand, I can't tell you how many people will come to the show. Not a lot, but they get offended and go, well, I heard him on the radio this morning. He wasn't this dirty. Or I saw him on Arsenio Hall last week. That's why we came to see him. And he did the same material. Well, I did 6 minutes on Arsenio Hall. I just did an hour. But you get those idiots. You can't make them happy. You would get people in the front row who, you know, I pick on and talk to, who get so offended. I didn't come to your show to be picked on. I came. It's my wife's anniversary. And then sometimes I'd be signing CDs after the show, and people come up to me. I stood in line for an hour to get front row seats. You didn't say a word to me. That's why we came to you. So it's like,
win.
damn, if you died, I can't win. You know, you just can't win.
Oh, that's funny, but I'm sure that happened. We
all the time, Scotty, all the time.
Well, we had, because you came early on in the Laughs career, I think we were able to showcase you for the audience that wanted to see that kind of humor and see who you were and how you presented things. I mean, when did you pick up the nickname Pitbull of comedy? I don't remember that. I knew we started using
that
it.
Was from Alex Bennett. Bennett in the 80s, who was one of the first guys to do morning radio. I went on his show. Alex Bennett was a radio legend. Even Howard Stern grew up listening to Howard. When I was a kid listening to him, when he moved to San Francisco, I was on KMEL. I went in to tell him what a fan I was. And I went on the radio, and that's when he said, "You know any other comedians?" And I was the guy that brought in Kevin Pollak and Robert Williams, Dana Carvey, and then comedy and radio became a very symbiotic thing. I'm not saying that me and Alex started it, but it was kind of the beginning of. It would have happened anyway without me and Alex, but there were no other radio stations bringing on comics every morning and doing it every day. And then he had a live studio audience. Nobody did this before Alex. And what's that?
I was just going to agree and say that one of the reasons that the club got off to a quick start is I was able to get in with Tim Bedore and other DJs on, if you remember, because I think you did that as well,
right.
KZAP Radio, real early on before they booted us all out. It was kind of
Tim Bedore was great. Yeah,
right.
Tim Bedore's still a friend of mine. He was on after Alex or on in the afternoon. He'd have comedians on. But Alex kind of started and got that whole thing. But I was on his show one time. This is how the Pitbull of comedy started. It was in the 80s when Pitbulls were in the news all the time. And they were eating the children, and the mailman would deliver the mail. They'd chew the mailman's hand off. Pitbulls had a bad reputation. And they weren't bad dogs, but people, trained them to be, monsters. So you'd always get this impression about pit bulls, who really are the nicest dogs when treated correctly. So I was on the show one time, and I was making fun of McDonald's. Every comic made fun of McDonald's. And who knows what the joke was back then? What are the chicken McNuggets made of? Who the hell knows? And what part of the chicken does that come from? Whatever the joke was, it was an innocuous joke on the radio, and I guess McDonald's were sponsors. And so one of the ad guys came running into the studio. "You just lost us a $50,000 account." And Alex goes, "You're like a pit bull. We put you on the show to plug your gig, and you bite the hand that feeds you," is what the whole thing was.
Oh.
You're like the pit bull of comedy. So back then it became the pit bull, and I didn't have a lot of TV credits back then. So when I did my first and my only young comedian special back in the 80s with John Larroquette, Robert Wall, a great comedian in his own right, had written an intro for me, and I didn't like it. It was really stupid. And he goes, "Give me something." "Oh, just use," they call him the Pitbull of comedy. So John Larroquette goes, they call him the Pitbull of comedy. So when I would play a club, they would use that. And over the years, you've seen him on The Tonight Show. You've seen him on Comedy Tonight, direct from Joan Rivers' show. And back then, if you weren't on the Johnny Carson show or Make Me Laugh, you really didn't have any credits. So it became the Pitbull of comedy,
And
they still use it.
Yeah.
And every time I play a club, they go, "You like that introduction?" I go, "No, I got to think of something else." And I just never. I took it off my website, but I just never thought of another name. And people would go, "Hey, I'm a big fan. Hey, Bulldog." "No, it's Pitbull. It's Pitbull." "That's what I meant." Whatever. Bulldog. Do I have the jowls? Do I have the yellow crap dripping out of my eyes? Really? Really?
They couldn't even.
Am I Bulldog? Am I fat?
Well,
really?
Yeah. Now, you were working for us really steady, and then the contract came up with the Punchline. You remember what year that was? Right. I think it was 88, 89.
Oh, God, no. Well, whenever the Punchline opened in Sacramento, that's the information you should have.
Oh, I probably should. So I remember it being in the late 80s, and that worked out. And
it was in the 80s, yeah.
Now, that you worked a lot for them, and that paid off for you, right? Financially.
When you say paid off, look, they opened a beautiful club in Sacramento. They're still there,
yes,
by the way. And, they didn't say I couldn't work for you, but, I couldn't saturate the market. They said, you need to keep, 6 months apart. But they were giving me a couple of times a year in Sacramento. They were booking me at that time, I think, 3 or 4 times. That's unimaginable now, because most comedy, there are so many comedians now, so many comics, that nobody plays these clubs more than once a year.
Oh, yeah. I was
playing San Francisco. What's that?
Well, I was a little different. I would like to bring guys in 3 or 4 times in a year, every maybe quarter, because it built a reputation. And I did, when they opened, I did have a good relationship with the booker. I can't recall her name, out of San Francisco, for the Punchline, but we worked on who was going to work where, when. and it was never an angry situation. I will say that I did run into Bill Graham once at a concert and introduced myself, and when he found out I owned Laughs Unlimited, he was not happy and gave me a few harsh words. But because
really, that doesn't sound. No, seriously, that doesn't sound like Bill.
Well,
really,
he felt I was stepping on his. He thought he was kind of the entertainment guru of Northern California, and I had a little bit of success with the club. And I don't know. I mean, it wasn't a big deal. I was nothing to him, but it was interesting that he even knew who I was surprised me. If you know
well,
what I mean.
You know what? Bill Graham was a very good friend of mine, and I loved him so much. But I have heard stories about if you're in competition with him, I could see where he wouldn't have you to the house for Passover dinner. I get it.
Yeah. And it wasn't, I'm sure it's something that he didn't remember 10 minutes later, but it was a short interaction. I just thought it was funny because I was a young kid that he felt I was any sort of threat to him, who was this monster of entertainment that I looked up to. I thought he was an entertainment producer god, I mean, he was doing everything.
Well, he was. He kind of started that whole business, but you were there first. But he probably didn't know that, But whatever, it's water under the bridge. But yes, I started working for the Punchline, and they gave me a couple of times a year. And then, even though San Francisco was in Sacramento, Tommy T had all his clubs in Pleasanton and San Ramon and all over the East Bay, which is an hour from you guys, 90 minutes maybe. And so I would play and there was Foo Bars, and then there was the Punchline of Walnut Creek. I mean, I was in the Bay Area, Northern California, and then there was Caesar's Tahoe at a comedy club, John Fox, and then I'd open up for bands at Harris, and, so I mean, just in Northern California, I had, oh my God, 10, 15 weeks minimum, more, 20 weeks a year.
Well, you were a bit of a celebrity in Northern California. I mean, everybody felt like
I was a bit of a celebrity. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody.
No, I meant in comedy.
And now you know what I'm doing?
In the 80s.
And now you know what I'm doing? I'm sitting in my house. I wolfed down lunch so I could talk to you. I'm going to go plant some new plants. I'm going to go put some more recipes in my box, figure out what to make my girlfriend for dinner, and go swim in my pool. That's my life now.
Well,
I'm not bitching about it.
No, it sounds like a good life. And so let's transition, because you went from being a celebrity of stand-up comedy in Northern California, and you left Laughs, and you had a career doing other clubs for the 90s, but you also transitioned into an actor. I mean, you did the Rat Pack movie, Bandits. I heard you even did a voice on Family Guy. One of my favorites was you were in the movie Get Shorty and had a scene with Travolta. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty exciting stuff.
You know what? It's all minor stuff, really, but people think it's really cool. So, yeah, and I worked for Woody Allen 3 times, who's a good friend and a great guy. And by the way, I have nothing to plug, but if anybody's listening, you should read Woody Allen's a new autobiography, apropos of nothing. I can see what a horrible human being his ex-wife Mia Farrow is, what a piece of shit his Ronan Farrow is, and Woody did nothing wrong. That's my opinion. So,
I'll have to read the book, but I've always
the guy that was railroaded like there's no tomorrow. Horrible human beings, those people. Yeah. But anyway, more importantly, I get to work for a lot of cool people. Working for Woody Allen for any actor is the greatest thing ever. And
great director.
Yeah. And we're both genius. Matter of fact, I'm sitting here looking at his first album on the wall of my office. When I did Woody Allen did a TV show called Crisis in 6 Scenes for Amazon Prime. It didn't get great reviews, but he put Louis Black in it and Judy Gold. They were terrific. Elaine May from Nichols and May, came out of retirement to play his wife. Miley Cyrus is in it. It got horrible reviews, but it was really pretty funny. So when I went to do it, I had a copy of Woody Allen's first album. And I said, "Can you sign it? Thank you, Bobby, for letting me work with a comedy genius." And he did. And it's on my wall.
Oh, that's awesome. It's kind of nice. That's a great story. And was it interesting or just a job working with people like Travolta and you worked with some other big stars and Bandits? Were these?
It's not a job. It's very exciting. I have friends like Kevin Pollak who've done 100 movies. For them, it might not be as exciting. for me, it's always exciting work with these people. You know, Bruce Willis, Billy Bob Thornton, Kate Blanchett. We had a couple of scenes in Bandits, which is a movie that nobody saw. It came out the week of 9/11, so I can see why people were preoccupied. But that was great. And Dreamgirls, I did a scene with, Eddie Murphy and Jamie Foxx, a quick scene, but it was great. It makes you feel like you're in showbiz.
Well, you were, and you were out there, and you've done a lot of TV. You did these movies. You had a really strong 40-plus year career in comedy. But I do have to ask, was being on Family Guy a highlight?
You want to hear it? Did you love Family Guy?
I just think it's a quirky, funny cartoon, and I know a lot of comics
I love Family Guy
that have dropped. And Bruce Baum was on it. I mean,
I know. Well, let me tell you what happened with Family Guy, because I played an Indian chief, which probably would be a no-go now. Have a white Jew play an Indian head of a casino, a Native American. But it's a very funny story, actually. When Family Guy, before it came on the air, I was doing a lot of voiceover work. I'm not doing much voiceover work now. I'm doing some great commercials for Skechers. My favorite shoe company, Skechers. They make the best shoes. And you can throw them in the wash, and they're great. And they got a memory foam. Don't cut this out because I got to send this to Skechers. Anyway, I got a whole bunch of new spots coming out for them. But I used to do a lot of radio spots and not a lot of voiceover stuff, but some animation. So I was working a lot in the clubs. It was the year the Family Guy came out, whatever year it was, at least probably about 30 years ago by now, almost. My daughter was little, let's say about 30 years ago, whatever. So I was on the road, and I come home, I pack, I unpack, I go back on the road, I come home, I walk the dog, I take my kids to school. I'm exhausted. And rarely do I get sick, and I come down with a really bad cold. And the next day, it's pouring rain. I think I have to leave to go back on the road to some fucking Funny Bone in Des Moines or somewhere. Not looking forward to it. Pack it, unpack it. So I get a call from my voiceover agent. He goes, listen, is there any way tomorrow you can come in and read for this new animated show? And I said, well, I'm leaving like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I got a flight. I'm not feeling well. He goes, yeah, well, they'll bring in the morning. They really, this guy, Seth MacFarlane, really wants to see you. And I go, no, nobody knew who this guy was. I go, and I've read for so many of these cartoons, I never got any of them. I go, every once in a while, I go, look, and I've never passed on anything. But I'm so exhausted, and I'm working, I'm passing on it. So my agent calls me back. He goes, Seth MacFarlane wants to know if we call you in like an hour, will you do it over the phone?
Wow.
We will send you the sides. I think I had a fax machine back then. I fax me the sides or whatever. So I read them. I couldn't give a shit if I got this or not because I knew I wouldn't. I get the part. Okay, it's the Indian chief, whatever it's called, whatever my big episode was called. First season, like the 4th or 5th episode. So I go in the studio. I go to my club, the Funny Bone in Des Moines, whatever. I come back. I go in the studio, and it's me, it's Seth MacFarlane, and he's doing, little Stewie's voice, and he's doing the father, and then whoever's doing the dog, and whatever. Like
he does a lot of them,
This is the stupidest piece of shit. This show's never going to go on TV. This is so stupid. Right, I'm on a vision quest. I'm the Indian chief, and you have to go in the woods, and I'm going, whatever. I mean, I'm very professional, very nice people, and I don't think this show's going anywhere. So meanwhile, it goes on the air, and I watch one episode, and I go, all right, whatever. And I chuckled a little. Watch the next episode. It's pretty funny. It's a pretty funny show. Watch another episode, and go, I don't think I watched it until everybody started saying how great Family Guy was. I start watching and go, holy shit, this is brilliant. I watch it, brilliant. And that's why Seth MacFarlane's a billionaire, and I'm doing your stupid fucking podcast for your imaginary listeners, and nobody cares.
Well, it's nice to put it all in
There's
perspective.
There's a difference between me and Seth MacFarlane.
It's just a small bridge. Oh, that's so funny. Well,
And by the way, who else have you had? Who have you had on your show so far that's nearly as entertaining as me?
Well, nobody is as entertaining as you. But we've had Mark Schiff on. We've had
good, very good comic.
Larry Wilson, comic magician, who was very entertaining on the show, and the guys Paul and Phil. but it's a growing thing. It's getting there. But
I thought you did 25 episodes. Who else? Who's on the other 20 episodes? Your fucking mother? Who was on the show?
Well, it's a wide variety of entertainment. Mostly comics that were regulars at the club in the 80s. Well, they're all comics that were regulars in the 80s and 90s at the club.
Anybody successful?
Well, yeah. Tim Bedore, Jeff Jenna, Mark Schiff, Bruce Baum.
Any headliners?
You're it, Bobby. You're all I could get. You know what we should do is let the audience hear some of your comedy.
Can you do that after I hang up the phone? Because I don't want to have to listen to any of this shit.
Okay. Well, I want to.
Okay. First of all, like I said, nothing to plug. I think on CD Baby or on Amazon or somewhere, my CDs are available. They can download all my shit. And you know what's funny? Some of it you could not do anymore. It'd be shocking, and none of it's shocking. It's all stuff you can play on the radio, most of it. And some of it is so old school that there were so many guys like the great Bill Burr, like Dave Chappelle. There are guys out there now, the stuff they're doing is so much more out there. So some of my stuff seems very tame in comparison. I think some of it is outdated. But, like Little Richard, I was an originator. I was the architect. I was the architect of comedy. Back when I was doing, and by the way, you mentioned Sam Kinison earlier. I was doing this 10 years before him. I always hate when people compare me to Andrew Dice Clay, who was a character.
Yeah, no, there's no comparison.
Nothing like,
and Sam
don't
Kinison,
compare me to Lenny Bruce or Andrew Dice Clay, and I'm not putting them in the same category, or Sam Kinison. None of us are alike. We're totally different. And people think, well, you're not politically correct, and you say the F word, so you're all in the same category. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, we had lots of acts use the F-bomb. That's not a big deal. It was the style, the machine gun rapid, thinking and sharing a material that was funny. And you mentioned a couple times old stuff, and I think, and one of the reasons I'm doing this podcast, and I could totally be wrong, Bobby, but I think funny is funny. Right? In other words, if a joke or a material worked in the 80s and it was truly funny, it's going to work now. I recently played a bit by Larry Miller that is at least 40 years old, and to me, it's as funny as the first time I heard it.
You know what? But you are wrong. Of course, you are wrong. Because, and let me use this as a perfect example, the great Lenny Bruce, a lot of his stuff is dated. A lot of it was, at the time, very funny. Even the great Marx Brothers, who I love with a passion. God, you watch a lot of stuff today and you go, okay, it's all dated, a lot of stuff, the Lucy Show, still very funny, very entertaining, but a lot of it is dated. A lot of those sitcoms, they're funny, but, they're not funny like Seinfeld is funny. A lot of it's dated. A lot of it's what you grew up with, too. A lot of it, there's a lot of factors involved.
Well, comedy's about.
But if you listen to Lenny Bruce, one of my heroes, a lot of stuff you go, well, that's not. Why is this funny? It's a lot of it is a product of its time.
Well, it is more difficult for politically edged comics. Bill Maher or Will Durst or Lenny Bruce is going to have trouble being as funny maybe 5-10 minutes after their material. But I mean, years after. Whereas I think material like yours transcends time.
Yes, just like I do. Yes, yes, yes.
I'm trying really hard to compliment you, and I know that it's going over like a lead balloon, but I do think of you as one of the great headliners that helped make my club a success, and that
how come you, wait, all right, stop. Shut up already. So how come all the years I played the Punchline, you never came out to say hello?
I've never been in the Punchline.
Why?
I don't know. I mean, I've been to the Improv, of course, and the Store, and most of the clubs in in the Bay Area. But the Punchline, and I've been to the Punchline in the city, but the one here.
But you still live in the Sacramento area, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you've never gone into the Punchline to see somebody.
No. It's just been something that never seemed. I mean, once you get out of the business, I mean, I was on the production side. I'm not saying it correctly. I produced the shows, and so and I never thought of myself as an entertainer. So after 21 years of doing comedy, 6 nights a week, you've kind of been there, done that. There was no need to go see it. I don't know if
I would think you'd want to go and say, well, let me see what the competition. Let me just go see the club, or let me go say hello to my old friend Bobby Slayton. Let me go say hello to somebody.
Well, maybe there was a little bit of jealousy or competition in me that led me not to do that.
That's exactly what it is. You're an angry, jealous, shallow man, and I'm glad to see that. I feel like this is therapy. I'm glad to recognize that now, and you're growing as a person and getting out of that.
Oh, you're helping me. Thank you so much, Bobby. You're giving me a reason to move forward.
Well, even if you don't want to go to the punchline, I think you just drive by and throw eggs at the window and go, yeah, well, fuck you too. And then you stick your tongue out and get back at them somehow.
Well,
ring the doorbell and run away in the afternoon. Pretend you're a delivery guy.
Exactly.
Something.
Do something. Well, let's wrap this up. Now, I saw you still appearing in Vegas recently. I know you said you're semi-retired, but you're still out there.
Done. I'm never going to go back to Vegas. I mean, you know what? Somebody calls me and, somebody give me a call. Last year, Bill Maher took me to Hawaii. There's big shows every year. I'm not done with stand-up, but if I never have to do it again, it's okay. I don't really miss it.
Well, you've had an amazing career.
I would call it an amazing career, but I made a living, and made a living. I worked my ass off. I was in the trenches. It's like one of the crime families. I never made it to underboss, but I was a captain. I moved up from soldier to captain. Never made it to underboss. I certainly never ran one of the 5 families, of comedy.
And you could disagree with me, but I feel that both of us, at our tender young age, were blessed to be able to, as you put it, make a living doing something we really loved. I mean,
okay,
I never got
like a little.
I never got
like
rich
a Shirley Temple movie. Really, Scotty?
Well, I'm just saying I never got rich and famous, but I'll never regret the years I had in comedy. I loved it and still do, and that's why
I never got
podcast.
Rich and famous either. And you want to know something? Right now, and this could change tomorrow, because I could have a stroke or a heart attack, or my house could burn down because I live on the hill in LA, or there could be an earthquake or a flood or a COVID or whatever is coming back, whatever's going on out there. But for now, I wake up every day and I go, I have a nice house. My daughter's healthy. I got a great girlfriend. She lives 5 minutes from me. I have a perfect life. I live in a house by myself. A nice house, not a great big house, nice little house with a nice little swimming pool and a nice little kitchen and a nice little gym and a set of drums in a soundproof room with my ex-wife's face on the drum head that I hit. No, I'm kidding. But so, everything is fine for now. So
good.
I have too many friends, like you said, that have died. And, you go on Facebook and there are too many people out there that go into operations. And the older you get, the more people that are dying, the more people getting sick. And you go, and it's very cliche, but, like my girlfriend said, just got to be thankful for what we got.
Exactly.
And even though the show has brought me down tremendously and reminded me of the horrible old days, well, I can hang up and go, at least I'm not Scott Edwards.
Well,
so that's good.
I'm glad we put some purpose to the moment. Hey, Bobby, it is always nice to reminisce with somebody that you remember and have fond memories and care about. And it was great working with you back in the day. And I appreciate you taking the time to do this show with me. And I think you'll be surprised. At least 2 or 3 people will hear it and appreciate what you had to share.
All right. First of all, we never really did talk about Laughs Unlimited. I thought that was the whole idea.
No. It was about comedy, and you did mention Laughs, and you enjoyed working there. And that was what's important to me is that you had good memories of working for me, because I certainly have good memories of you working for me. Sounds a little redundant.
Yeah, well, you know what? Let's talk again in another, 30 years. Let's catch up again on your next podcast.
Well, I don't think it'll be that long.
You have anybody lined up to do your next podcast? Who else you have lined up?
We're doing a special anniversary version with my partner Bob Stobener, and then his sister who used to MC and manage some of the clubs, Lynn Stobener.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about those two. What are those guys doing?
Bob's Mucky Muck with the Rayleigh's Bel Air grocery store chain, and Lynn Stobener is still doing a little bit of entertainment here and there, works out of her home, and they're both very funny people and still a big part of my life.
I like them both a lot more than you. I was hoping that I could have done the podcast with them. Well, and then you would have come. I was hoping you'd come on like the old days and do 10 minutes of your shitty jokes and then bring on Bob and Lynn to host the show. That would have with me. That would have really brought back the old days.
Well, then that just
wait.
means...
And am I wrong about this? You used to come on stage. You used to come on like in your bathrobe, but then on Saturday night you put on a jacket.
Well,
you come on like you do your gardening, whatever you do. You leave the office. You come on stage dressed like a schlup. But then every Saturday night, I think you put on a jacket and tie. Am I right?
I went through a couple different phases. I was dressed up in a suit for many years, and there was many years I was just in a Hawaiian shirt. I don't remember the overalls, but yeah, it went from dressing to casual.
I'm embellishing for comedy. I still have it in me. I still got it. I still got it, pal.
You're hilarious.
Hilarious.
Okay. Wait, did you say Bruce Baum did the show? You haven't had Bruce Baum yet.
He hasn't been recorded yet, but he's all set up. Yeah, we're going to be doing him. You want me to mention something?
Yeah, tell him to stop doing my material. Tell him Baby Man was always mine. That was my bit he stole. Yeah.
I will definitely say something.
I'm gonna call Bruce and say hello. I haven't talked to him for a while. I love Bruce. I used to open up for him all the time. He's a good friend.
He is a good guy. But so are you. Thanks for doing this, Bobby, and we appreciate you taking the time out of your special retirement day.
Okay, but let me tell you, give one more thing. If you're going to cut out anything at all, one word from this interview, make sure it's you. Don't cut out anything I said.
Okay, you got it.
Okay?
All right, thanks for doing this. Everybody,
I'll talk to you.
All right, everybody, thanks for listening to the podcast. Bobby Slayton, the Pitbull of comedy. And look, there he goes. He's already gone. Well, that was great having Bobby on the show, but right now we want to showcase some of his material. As we talked about, he does have a different style. I think you'll enjoy it. So here's a set that was recorded live at Laughs Unlimited in the mid-'80s. Ladies and gentlemen, Bobby Slayton on stage.
Sacramento, let me ask you guys something. Sacramento, with the police department, you guys have that minority quota, certain amount of women on the police department, gays on the police department, all that bullshit. You got that here? You got that? See, now, I don't care if every cop's a black Filipino lesbian. I mean, it doesn't make any difference to me. As long as they can do the job. In San Francisco, you have to hire women on the police department, blacks on the police department, gays on the police department. Yeah, gay cop. I guess if he gets busted by a gay cop, he wears the handcuffs. You know, it's like the fire department. Get along. Here's a great story. You guys will appreciate this. Last night, we get these angry lesbians sitting up front. Like there's any other kind. Oh, like there's happy lesbians. They're all miserable fat fucks, every one of them. Anyway, now I'm not even sure that they were lesbians. I'm not positive. But this one woman had this underarm hair. It was like macrame. No, I swear to God. It was like she had it, and she had a plant. She had it hanging down and she like went to Perrier, and she like watered the plant during the show. Anyway, I'm doing the show, and these ladies, to show you what they're like, and I mean, not that you haven't seen lesbians, you know what they're like, the real feminist lesbians, which is feminist lesbian. It's like a radical Nazi. So I said, make sure during the show that you tip the waitresses. And this one woman goes, they're not waitresses, they're wait persons. I said, they got tits, they're waitresses. If they had dicks, they'd be waiters. If they had tits and a dick, then they'd be really fat waiters. I didn't say that. I should have, though. Anyway, so I'm talking to these women, and I ask them what they do for a living. And this woman goes, I live in San Francisco. I'm a firefighter. I said, that's great. You're a lady fireman. No, I'm not a fireman. I'm a firefighter. I said, firefighter, lady fireman, what the hell's the difference? This woman gets up. She storms out of the club. She's about 5 feet tall. Now, I'm not saying women shouldn't be on the fire department. If a woman can do a job, give her the job. All right? But when a woman's 5 feet tall, I'm in a fire. I want a guy that looks like Rambo with an axe in his teeth. I want a guy that's going to huff and puff, blow down the door, pick up me and my Sony Trinitron into one arm and walk down the ladder. I don't need this little uptight dyke with asbestos Birkenstocks. Get up, get up, get up. Don't touch me, sister. It's my house. I'll die right here. And on your way out the door, put up the toilet seat. I don't know. You Mexican? Are you Mexican? What's your name? Tony. Your name's not from Mexican. Tony is an Italian name. Now, you're not Mexican. You are Mexican. You're both Mexican. That's great. Could you people stay together? Don't try to, like, inbreed with us. Just stay... Mexico's a fine country. You ever go to Mexico? Never been to Mexico. I was down there last month with my girlfriend. Went to Cancun. Went to see the ancient Mayan ruins. Ancient Mayan ruins. Ancient Mayan ruins. Ancient Mayan ruins. Wait. Ancient Mayan ruins? Ancient Mayan ruins. I'm right. I get it. Which is the one with the big black maid? The ancient Mayan ruins. The big black maid made out of stone. We went to the ancient Mayan ruins. They also have the ancient Mayan ruins. We didn't get to see those. They're both equally as impressive. The ancient Mayan ruins. The Aztecs built the ancient Mayan ruins. Then they have the ancient Mayan ruins. They're both real cool. But it's amazing, dude, because see, Mexicans and Americans different. You know, because you're Mexican, you're American, you got a lot to be proud of. But in Mexico, these people, you know, they got a national debt now, what, $96 billion. What did we just do this last month? We lent them another $5 billion. It's like they're ever going to pay us back. Like these people are ever going to pay us back. They're never going to pay us back. But see, you make fun of Mexico, in Mexico, what do the Mexicans say to you? Senor, don't make fun of this country. It's a different culture than America. I say, pal, it's not a different culture. It's the same culture we have, only we had it about 5,000 years ago. We've learned how to make roads. We're just a little bit higher on the food chain than you are. You can't even come back into the United States without going through this agricultural inspection and filling out all these forms and all this bullshit. It actually says on the immigration forms, are you bringing back more than $200 worth of merchandise? Now, I don't think in the entire country of Mexico, there's $200 worth of merchandise. Now, so you're very pretty. You're a young Mexican woman. Now, why is it? Now, maybe you guys know. Why is it that every old Mexican woman you see is fat? But every young Mexican woman is skinny. You know, I think old Mexican women eat the young Mexican women. Is this what happened?
Well, he certainly has a different type of comedy. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks again for listening. Thanks to Bobby Slayton for doing the interview and sharing some of the comedy that we had back from the 80s. Hope you're enjoying our podcast series. Be sure to listen, share, and rate if you get a chance. We'll see you next week for another great show. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Stand-Up Comedy, your host and MC. For information on the show, merchandise, and our sponsors, or to send comments to Scott, visit our website at www.standupyourhostandmc.com. Look for more episodes soon and enjoy the world of stand-up comedy. Visit a comedy showroom near you.